Welcome to this special edition of the DPW podcast, live from the floor of DPW New York, where we're covering procurement, technology, and innovation. My guest now is Brian Solis, driving innovation at ServiceNow. Original OG of Silicon Valley. We caught up before, Brian, talking about past and friends. You've been on this journey around transformation of technology for quite a few years. You only look like a young 25-year-old, but you've been defining this space both as thought leadership, but author, and also driving the new generation of products. So welcome to DPW, and thank you very much for the amazing presentation you just had as well.
Thank you. I have to tell you that this is the coolest set I've ever been on. So I'm proud to be here, but more importantly, I'm proud to be here at DPW. So thank you for the opportunity to kick things off. I was pretty pumped. I talked to several folks who were attending to kind of plug in on the challenges that they were having, the things that they've been thinking about, the things that they weren't thinking about. And so I came in here incredibly inspired.
Well, I'm glad to bring you into the world of procurement. I'm not sure if you've explored this space in any detail here, but we're very happy to embrace yourself into it. And I mentioned you're an author. I've read some of your past books, but you've recently authored another book. Maybe you could quickly tell us more about that one, because we can't get all the knowledge out of you in 20 minutes on this podcast.
I'll be super fast. It's my first book. It's number 9, but it's my first book in 5 years. I took a break. The last 5 years have been incredibly transformative, with everything from a global pandemic to the rise of generative AI and AI agents, and also the just massive disruption all around the world in every facet of life, whether it's the climate or whether it's politics or what have you. And the book is called Mind Shift. It's how to drive leadership, how to drive innovation, how to reshape the future. And what it shares is essentially my career. It takes into the futurism work that I've done, analyzing trends, making sense of the trends, and then bringing those trends back into decision makers or influencers within the organization to make decisions now before disruption, versus, as we see so many companies do, make decisions after disruption. And so the idea is to give people a mind shift, and that gift starts with giving yourself a mind shift.
Fantastic. I mean, I haven't read the book. I will read the book, and it's a really interesting point of getting all these threads together and allowing you to actually put that into some sort of strategy you can execute. Because we have this massive information coming through. We're reading articles here, X, Y, Z, and the world is changing so quickly. So I'm fascinated. I'll come back to you once I've read that book. But I think you shared a little bit of that on the stage earlier. I love your point, the WWAI hashtag. And I guess I embrace that myself. And maybe you can explain the hashtag.
Absolutely. So when the whole premise of today's talk is to recognize that historically, through every technology revolution that we've undergone, as far back as you want to go, we have taken that technology and we have optimized yesterday with it. Greater efficiencies, greater scale, lower costs, all good things that we need to do. But artificial intelligence, in my point of view, in my research, demonstrates a possible technology that allows you to do what you didn't do yesterday. So when we read articles, when we come to conferences, when we listen to speakers, we process that information through our experience, through our own biases, through who we are as individuals and professionals. And that's actually what locks us into this pattern of iteration. So again, doing what we did yesterday better tomorrow. What I wanted to bring out today was this idea that, what if you didn't know what to do? And what if that was okay? What if you accepted there is no playbook for AI business transformation, and that you believed you could play a role in defining what that could be? So the hashtag is something that I personally use to get out of the way, so I don't try to be me, the expert, trying to solve all of these things. And WWAID stands for, what would AI do? It is a question that I ask myself to challenge whatever ideas I was going to have, or recommendations or advisory I was going to have, to see how AI might do it differently, how it might do it bigger, how it might do it creatively, whatever it is. And then once my mind is now in this new place, I can then interact with AI in a way that I couldn't have done before. And so the idea is that WWAID gets you to an outcome that you couldn't do without AI and that AI couldn't do without you.
It's fascinating to, I love that you've been able to disseminate that into a hashtag like that, but it's the way we need to think. I mean, I've been having these conversations with procurement leaders over the last few months about what's the future operating model of procurement. And everyone is stuck in this, 10% improvement side and not rethinking about what the actual value proposition is. And I had a conversation yesterday with a CPO who was really talking about how procurement now can look at what the brand and the consumer promise or customer promises of the organization, and how do they link that into their supply chain to unlock the future products and services of that organization, versus procurement being enabler for savings or sustainable supply. And I think this really leads into your point of how do we think different about procurement, the operating model, and how we can drive the business in new ways in the future as well.
One of the things that I learned in preparing for today, in speaking with attendees, speaking with partners and customers, that 10% is real. Whether it's 10% scale or whether it's 10% cost takeout, like that is just how we make decisions. But if you bring back that hashtag, what would AI do? And you allow yourself to ask different questions beyond just the 10%. Let's just assume that that's the new AI-powered status quo. What growth can you drive? What could you do today that you couldn't do yesterday? And some of the interesting research that I stumbled across as I was preparing for this was published by QuantumBlack, McKinsey's QuantumBlack, and they had said that of all of the investments around generative AI, at least to date, they studied 25 attributes, and the number one performer was when companies looked across their organization. So think procurement workflow, think supply chain workflows, and they realized that all the different things it touches, but it doesn't connect. So disparate parts doing disparate things. Imagine now AI in those disparate parts only being able to affect those disparate parts. What they realize is if when you can connect the flow and the data fabric across each, you now unlock the potential of AI across the entire journey. And that's growth.
Yep.
That what they found was it was not only the number one performer, but it was the number one contributor towards profitability. Like that is a different conversation than 10%.
It's fascinating to think about that data unlock across the organization. And you just triggered my thought. I mean, procurement has somewhat been developed over the last 25 years into a kind of 7-step process, a sourcing process that came in. I think it was A.T. Kearney or one of the consultancies did it. And now we've been optimizing that process for 30 years. But actually, before that, procurement was supporting the business on its business growth strategy. However it was going to do that, launching a new product, how do we deliver that? But we have gone into quite a siloed process over the years, and we've then put the technology to try and optimize it. This rethinking of procurement and that connected part across the organization, because it touches every part of the organization, every function we're trying to support. But I think this is what's coming on the technology side. And I'm not sure if it's agents with the MCP servers connecting up with other systems or other agents, but we're coming into a whole new world of what technology means versus these kind of siloed SaaS solutions that we've probably been, at least the last 15 years, holding the company together.
Oh, absolutely. I think, let's get philosophical for a second. One of the challenges, you think about any innovation brainstorm session you've ever been part of, whether it's with your teams or you were working with other companies where they wanted your outside perspective. When we are asked to think outside of the box, when we're asked to come up with new ideas, we're not often tasked with sort of that psychological safety or the type of directive that says, listen, I want you to spend the next 2 weeks, before we get together and have this conversation, I want you to spend the next 2 weeks looking at what you think the most innovative companies are outside of procurement. just let's not even talk about procurement. Let's talk about what's innovative about them. What are they doing differently? How did they get there? Let's look at the human components. Let's look at the culture of the organization. Because what happens is that when we come to that creative meeting without doing those things, we are bringing our procurement mindset, we are bringing in the box that we operate in, because those are the parameters that we make decisions around, right? And so we can't think outside of the box if we're putting ourselves in yet another box, just guised under a different conversation. So the philosophical point here is that the best way to think differently about what the next 5-10 years look like and how to do it better, not just differently, but better, is to stop thinking like you are the expert in the room and stop looking at industry use cases that are inherently tied to iteration versus innovation, because then you will always be stuck to that 10%.
Yeah, I think it's good, and it's the challenge, the WWAID. I'm not trying to do the iteration. I've got my daughter with me. She's traveled me to the event today. She's 20, just started computer science. So I'm going to be intrigued to chat with her after this, because she hasn't got all that kind of built up biased hierarchy and thinking as she looks at kind of AI in the procurement space. But as we look at these current tech providers who are supporting the organization today, or the new AI native companies, and as Sam Altman kind of mentioned recently, he sees a $1 billion one-person organization coming through. We're already seeing that with 5, 10, 20 people. The product vision is going to be an important part. And obviously you got Bill, who's been transforming the technology stack and the enterprise, and we're going to have some founders who have deep knowledge that this kind of product vision, obviously it's not easy for some companies to flip to this new paradigm, but maybe you could talk about how the new product vision is going to be driving this new technology, the transformation of ServiceNow, but also, you know, these other companies that you're seeing coming through as well.
When Bill talks about ServiceNow, he positions us as a company that is here to help our customers transform their businesses. You won't see things like 10% in our tagline. You'll see things like we are the platform for AI business transformation. So that means you have to start from a perspective of what do I need to do to improve my business or transform my business for an AI economy. So we'll always say that AI is only as powerful as the platform that it runs on. Earlier, when you talked about systems of record, for example, systems of engagement, those do sit disparately within the organization, because if you look at organizational design, going back to the 1960s, for example, companies were designed to scale. The best way to scale was to put the department functions in their own organizations. Technology stacks then became dedicated to the optimization of those functions. But what we ended up doing over time was not only keeping them disparate, but reinforcing those silos. Even though we've always said, wow, we got to break down the silos. Yeah. We never really meant that. Whether it's technologically or politically within the organization, we're just not coming together. We're treating these things as their own individual P&Ls. We're treating them like their own individual cost centers. But if you look at the future of technology, Bill has recently talked about how AI agents in the future, in the near future, won't really need an interface to go do what you need them to do. So then the interface becomes the agent. And if you're going to perform a cross-functional workflow towards an outcome that has business value, then you're going to have to look at sending those agents out to the disparate systems and then connecting them across on a platform to execute. But in that process, then, it has assembled the data into that workflow from the disparate systems, of which then it can learn from, optimize, and improve. And that is transformative. So not only can the technology allow you to do that, you have to, as a strategist, see that this is where things are going, and any decision that you're making in reinforcing that legacy process is going to be in your way as this future scenario comes to life, and it's coming to life sooner than later.
I wish I could have articulated that vision as clearly as you just have, but I will re-listen to this conversation and see if I can mimic that, Brian. In terms of your own personal life, how are you changing the way you use AI? Other than we have our LLMs ourselves, you finding you're automating things in different ways?
Oh man. Well, first of all, as you alluded to at the beginning of this conversation, I've been part of Silicon Valley for a really long time, pretty much on the front lines of every wave, making sense of them, helping businesses transform. But at the end of the day, I am just a geek at heart. I remember buying my first, Timex Sinclair, Commodore 64, actually the VIC-20 before that, learning how to program BASIC, then eventually Fortran. As a kid, I used to go mow lawns to go get money to buy these things. And so when I had a chance to move to Silicon Valley, I have shelves of everything that has ever come and transformed the world, of just stuff I bought and played with forever. And my shelf now is making space for all of this AI gear. So like right now, I'm wearing the Limitless pin, which is recording our conversation, and all of those conversations become a subsequent LLM, not just to ask it questions about what you talked about, but you can connect that smaller language model to a larger language model so that you can then compare to the greater language models of the ideas or the conversations that we're having. But it'll also act a bit like Zoom AI assistant. So it'll analyze the conversation and report back to me, here are the action items that just came from your conversation with Mark. And it'll prompt me that if I put agents on top of that, I could now actually start checking the boxes of getting that work done. But I also love, for example, the Meta glasses.
I was looking at those. I got a new pair of sunglasses the other day, and I think I ended up with a pair of Oakleys to play paddle with. But I'd have the Meta ones. They're good, are they?
Oh, my use case was to take them to Italy and to use them to translate Italian in real time, to translate menus in real time, and then to also be my own personal tour guide. Hey, Meta, what am I looking at? And have it tell me what I'm looking at, and then the historical significance, the stories behind it's so I've augmented myself already with, and there's more I could tell you about, but we don't have enough time.
Wow, look, it's fascinating. I'll be buying the Limitless AI pin and the glasses. You have been defining this space for a long time. So we've got a shared friend in Francine and Robert. I remember when Robert came to London with his Google Glass all those years ago. I guess Meta's now the one that you can actually use, but and I'm sure Apple might come out with this stuff. But Brian, it's been great to have you on stage. It's great to have the podcast, and I'd love to catch up with you again, because this thinking differently, thinking WWAID is going to change how procurement works. But I think your point around how do we look at supporting the business and driving business value and breaking those silos is what I'm walking away from this conversation and thinking, right, I need to challenge myself some more. And I think also for the viewers in the audience here today, it's probably another way for them to look at it. Thank you very much, and we'll talk again soon, I'm sure.
Thank you, Mark, and I hope so.